Deep in the rugged mountains of Montana, a deadly game of cat and mouse is about to begin. The most ruthless Mexican cartel has set its sights on a quiet farmland in Ironwood Valley, believing they're dealing with just another aging rancher. They couldn't be more wrong. Wade Thorne isn't your typical farmer. For 30 years, he was the most lethal Delta Force commander in U.S. military history, leading classified missions that never made the headlines. His call sign? Phantom, a ghost that struck without warning and disappeared without a trace. This isn't just another war story. This is the brutal lesson of how the deadliest cartel in the Western Hemisphere found out the hard way that some old soldiers never lose their edge. They came for his land, but what they walked into was a trap, a battlefield designed by a master of asymmetric warfare. What followed was a 5-day operation where Wade and his elite team dismantled an entire cartel network using nothing but a remote farm, decades of combat experience, and the tactical brilliance that made him a legend. But before we dive in, tell us, where are you tuning in from? And if this story grabs you, hit subscribe, because tomorrow, I've got something even wilder lined up for you. The morning frost crunched under Wade Thorne's boots as he walked the perimeter of his land. The first light of dawn spilled over the Montana mountains, painting the sky in gold and amber. His German shepherd, Atlas, trotted beside him, ears perked, always alert. At 65, Wade still moved with the quiet precision of a much younger man. His sharp eyes scanned the horizon, instincts honed by 3 decades of war. Something felt off. He crouched, running his fingers over deep tire tracks in the mud. Heavy vehicles. Not local. Atlas let out a low growl. A truck rattled up the dirt road. Sarah Bennett, his closest neighbor, pulled up in her weathered pickup, eyes wide with concern. Wade, thank God. Did you hear about the Hendersons? He stood, brushing dirt from his jeans. What about them? They're gone. Packed up in the middle of the night. No warning. But this morning, I saw men at their place. Black SUVs. Big guys. Not locals. Cartel. Wade's voice was calm, but his mind was already racing, analyzing threats, forming countermeasures. Sarah's hands tightened on the steering wheel. They've been moving up from the south, buying out properties. Those who don't sell, they have other ways of convincing them. Wade's jaw clenched. Have they approached you yet? Not yet. But Miller's farm went last week. Same thing. Mysterious buyers, too much money to refuse. Those who resist say their land gets used for other things. Distribution routes. It made sense. Isolated farms. No prying eyes. Storage facilities already in place. Perfect for cartel logistics. Sarah leaned closer, voice dropping. Wade, these aren't just some low-level thugs. They're organized. They're well-funded. The sheriff is out of his depth, and no one else will stand up to them. Wade patted the side of her truck. Don't worry about me, Sarah. I've handled worse. Just keep your head down. They're working through the valley methodically. Won't be long before they come knocking. As Sarah drove off, Wade whistled for Atlas and strode toward his barn. Inside, beneath an unassuming layer of farm tools and equipment, lay a hidden cellar. Paranoia, his old friends had called it. Wade called it preparation. He pried up the false floorboard, revealing a cache of equipment he never thought he'd need again: military-grade communications gear, weapons, tactical kits. Everything required to turn this land into a battlefield. His phone buzzed. A message from an old contact in law enforcement. Cartels moving fast. 7 properties taken in a month. Watch your back. Wade pocketed the phone and unrolled a detailed map of the valley. His land sat at a crucial junction, controlling the main road, overlooking 3 approach routes. No wonder they wanted it. The distant hum of engines pulled his attention. Through the window, he watched as 3 black SUVs crawled past his gate. Slowly. Too slowly. They were scouting, marking the next target. Wade scratched Atlas behind the ears. They don't know who they're dealing with. The rest of the morning was spent making calls. Old teammates. Ghosts of a war that never officially happened. Men who fought in the shadows and left no footprints. KNX, it's Phantom. Remember that favor you owe me? Time to pay up. A pause. Then a familiar voice. Damn, Wade. Been a long time. How bad is it? Cartels moving in. Setting up operations. They'll be here soon. A low whistle on the other end. Need backup? Wade allowed himself a small smile. Might not hurt to get the old team together. One last mission. A chuckle. You know we're not as young as we used to be. Wade's gaze drifted back to the road, where the SUVs had disappeared over the ridge. Don't need to be young, he muttered. Just need to be better. Grimly, Wade said, his voice steady. Neither are they. Call the others. We've got work to do. By afternoon, the wheels were already in motion. 4 of his old team members were en route. Knox Raven Winters, their sniper, the deadliest set of eyes on any battlefield. Cyrus Blast Alvarez, demolitions expert, a man who could turn a fortress into dust with just a few well-placed charges. Zane Ghost Voss, communications and surveillance, the guy who could crack a secure line before most people finished dialing. Nash Kestrel Carter, their medic, but also the guy you'd never want to get into a knife fight with. Together, they had faced down warlords, terrorists, and entire armies. A cartel? They wouldn't know what hit them. As the sun dipped behind the Montana mountains, Wade walked his property again, but this time, not as a farmer. Now, he saw it for what it truly was, a battlefield. Every hill, every tree line, every approach, it was all potential cover, choke points, and kill zones. The cartel thought they were targeting some old rancher. They were about to walk straight into a war. Atlas's sudden bark snapped Wade's focus back to the present. More vehicles. The same black SUVs from earlier, but this time, they stopped at his gate. Wade adjusted his worn baseball cap, squared his shoulders, and prepared to play the role of the simple farmer. Let them think he was harmless. Let them underestimate him. It would be the last mistake they ever made. The SUV doors opened, and 5 men stepped out. Their expensive suits looked comically out of place against the rugged Montana landscape. Wade counted 2 more staying with the vehicles, their hands concealed beneath their jackets. Armed. Watching. Atlas let out a low, rumbling growl, but a light touch from Wade's hand kept him quiet. The leader stepped forward. Felix El Spectro Reyes. Cartel upper management. His boots crunched on gravel as he walked, his practiced smile never quite reaching his cold, steel-gray eyes. Mr. Thorne. Beautiful property you have here. He extended a hand. Wade took it, noting the grip, too firm, a dominance play. Amateur move. What can I do for you gentlemen? Wade asked, his voice measured, casual. Behind Felix, 2 men started drifting toward the barn, trying to look casual about it. Another loitered by the gate, a radio clipped to his belt. Ex-military. Sloppy, though. Comfortable. Felix gestured toward the valley. We represent an investment group. We've been acquiring properties in the area, expanding operations, you might say. Your land, it has certain features that interest us. Wade leaned against the fence, exuding calm. Inside, he was marking sight lines, measuring distances, cataloging every detail. 3 of them were professionals, ex-military, likely special forces from the south. The others? Just cartel muscle. Hired intimidation. Not interested in selling, Wade said simply. This land's been in my family too long. Felix's smile tightened. Perhaps I wasn't clear. We're prepared to offer well above market value. $3 million. Cash. A generous offer for someone who was afraid. Wade scratched behind Atlas's ears, buying time to study the men near the barn. They were checking sightlines. Not real estate investors. An advance team. Scoping the land for an assault. Money isn't everything, Wade said. Some things aren't for sale. Felix stepped closer, his voice dropping to something lower, more threatening. Mr. Thorne, let me be direct. This valley is changing. Progress, you might say. You can be part of that change and profit from it. He let the words hang in the air, before adding, or. Wade said nothing, but he noted the subtle shift in posture from the men around him. Standard intimidation formation. Surround the target. Apply pressure. Or you might find this valley becoming very unwelcoming, Felix continued. Accidents happen. Especially to stubborn old men who don't know when to take a good deal. For the first time, Wade let his demeanor change just slightly. Just enough steel in his voice to send a ripple of doubt through the group. Sounds like a threat, Mr. Reyes. Felix's eyes flickered with surprise. Wade saw it, a crack in the confidence. He wasn't supposed to know that name. A carefully calculated slip, just enough to remind them that this wasn't some clueless farmer they were dealing with. Felix recovered quickly, smirking. The valley is changing. Fighting it would be unwise. One of the men by the barn called out in Spanish. Something about security cameras. Wade let them see those. The obvious ones. His real surveillance was hidden much deeper. Felix reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card, holding it out. Think about it. You have 24 hours. After that, the offer becomes significantly less generous. Wade took the card. Fake company name. Cartel front. Standard play. I'll sleep on it. Felix turned to leave, then paused, casting a glance at Atlas. Beautiful dog. German Shepherd, yes? A slow, deliberate smirk. Would be a shame if something happened to him. Atlas growled, sensing the shift in Wade's body language. Wade didn't move. Didn't blink. But when he spoke, his voice carried the quiet, deadly weight of a man who had seen war from angles these cartel men couldn't imagine. That would be a very serious mistake. Felix hesitated. A flicker of something behind his eyes, doubt, uncertainty. He'd come expecting a pushover. Instead, he just glimpsed something else. A predator. A ghost. A man who had walked through hell and come out the other side. The cartel men climbed back into their SUVs, trying to maintain their confident swagger. Wade watched them drive away, his mind already working. His phone buzzed. The war had just begun. A text flashed across Wade's screen. KNX, 4 hours out. Teams assembled. Wade's fingers moved swiftly over the keys. Make it 3. Company's already knocking. Inside his house, he activated his real security system. Cameras hidden in trees covered every approach. Motion sensors tracked every perimeter breach. Every feed funneled into a command center he'd built in his basement, a holdover from years of planning for worst-case scenarios. Pulling up satellite images, he studied the valley. 7 farms taken in the last month. Each one strategic. His land was the missing piece, the key to controlling the main valley access point and offering clear lines of sight for miles. His phone rang. Sarah. Her voice was tight with worry. Wade, they were at your place, weren't they? I saw the SUVs. He checked his weapon, keeping his voice casual. Just a friendly business proposition. Nothing to worry about. Don't lie to me. Miller tried to stand up to them. The next day, his barn burned down. Day after that, his wife's car crashed on a straight road. No witnesses. Sarah, listen carefully. Wade's voice dropped an octave, all business now. For the next few days, stay with your sister in Missoula. Don't tell anyone you're going. Wade, what are you planning? Better you don't know. Just trust me. Hanging up, Wade descended into his hidden cellar. The room was just as he'd left it, an armory of well-maintained weapons, tactical gear, and equipment ready for use. He checked each piece methodically, muscle memory guiding his hands as he field-stripped and reassembled his rifles. Atlas let out a soft whine from above. Wade paused, listening. Another vehicle. Different engine sound. He checked the security feed. Sheriff's Department. Deputy Mike Hayes. Young. Honest. Out of his depth. Wade met him at the gate. Hayes shuffled awkwardly, clearly uncomfortable. Mr. Thorne, heard you had visitors today. Word travels fast. The deputy exhaled, shifting his weight. Look, about Miller. The Hendersons. We know what happened. But we can't prove anything. These people? They're connected. Evidence disappears. Witnesses change their stories. Wade studied him. And you're here to tell me to take the deal. Hayes swallowed hard, ashamed. They own half the valley already. Fighting them is suicide. Wade gave a slow nod. Appreciate the warning, deputy. But I can handle myself. As Hayes drove off, Wade's phone buzzed again. Zane intercepted their comms. Full assault planned. They're not waiting 24 hours. Wade exhaled through his nose. Perfect. Let them come. Let them think they had the upper hand. 3 decades of combat had taught him that overconfident enemies make mistakes. And mistakes? He knew exactly how to exploit them. He had 3 hours until his team arrived. 3 hours to turn his farm into a fortress. Engines rumbled in the distance. Wade switched to the security feed, watching as 4 vehicles approached from different directions, his team using old tactics to avoid being tracked. The first to arrive was Knox's black pickup, followed by Cyrus in a weathered Jeep. Minutes later, Zane and Nash pulled in, their vehicles coated in dust from backroad driving. 20 years melted away in an instant as the old unit reassembled in the barn. Their movements were still in sync, every man falling into position as if no time had passed. Knox Raven Winters carried his custom sniper rifle case like an extension of himself. Cyrus Blast Alvarez unloaded his gear, enough explosives to level a small town, all neatly concealed in construction supply cases. Zane Ghost Voss set up his comms equipment, civilian-looking, but Wade knew it could crack military-grade encryption in minutes. Nash Kestrel Carter unpacked his medical kit, upgraded since their last op, but still familiar. He'd patched them up through worse. Just like old times, Knox muttered, his voice gruff but warm. Except usually we had the government backing us. Cyrus smirked, checking the barn's structure. Government would just slow us down. He glanced around, nodding in approval. Nice setup, Wade. Good sight lines. Multiple escape routes. You weren't kidding about being ready. Wade spread a detailed map across the workbench. The cartel's been systematic, he said. Taking key properties. Establishing distribution routes. They're not just running drugs, they're setting up a permanent operation. Zane brought up intercepted comms on his laptop. They've got professionals in their ranks. Mostly Mexican special forces. But their security? Sloppy. Arrogant. Their mistake, Nash observed, sorting medical supplies. How many? Knox asked. Wade tapped marked locations on the map. Main force is about 30 men. 2 groups. First team is muscle, intimidation, arson, accidents. Second team? Actual professionals. Tactical training. Combat experience. Knox studied the terrain through the barn doors, a calculating gleam in his eye. Kill zones everywhere. Natural bottleneck here. High ground advantage. We can funnel them right where we want them. Wade nodded. They're coming in force. No more pretense of being businessmen. They'll have heavy weapons, armor, maybe even air support. Cyrus grinned, unrolling his demolition plans. Good. Been a while since we had a proper fight. We're not just holding them off. Wade's voice turned cold, carrying the weight of 3 decades of war. We end this. Permanently. Not just here, we shut down their entire operation in the valley. The team sobered instantly. That tone, they'd heard it before. It was the voice that had led them through impossible missions, the voice that had brought them all home alive when the odds said otherwise. Wade's eyes moved over each of them. Why'd you really come? They could have stayed retired. Stayed safe. Nash spoke first, his medical bag open beside him. Remember Kosovo? That village we found after the militia went through? He shook his head. Some things you can't walk away from. Some fights need fighting. Cyrus barely looked up from checking detonator wires. Cartel took my cousin's farm in Texas. By the time anyone could do anything, it was too late. Not happening again. Not here. Knox just shrugged, but his eyes were hard. You called. That's enough. Zane's fingers flew over his keyboard. They're moving faster than we thought. Intercepted orders, main force is mobilizing for tonight. No warning. No negotiation. They're coming to take the farm and send a message. Wade's lips curled into a grim smile. Perfect. Let's give them a message of their own. The next hour was pure preparation. Cyrus rigged the main road with explosives, enough to flip an armored vehicle if necessary. Knox established 3 sniper nests, covering every approach. Zane set up a command center in Wade's basement, linking comms and surveillance. Remember Kandahar? Knox asked as they worked. That night raid? Cyrus chuckled. When the whole city lit up. Never saw so much firepower in my life, Nash added, securing medical supplies. Until Wade called an audible. Cyrus grinned. Turned their own defenses against them. Still don't know how you knew that would work. Wade checked his ammo. People get predictable when they think they have the advantage. Cartels the same way. They're used to civilians. Used to easy victories. They won't be ready for what's coming. Zane's voice crackled over the radio. Movement at the Henderson place. They're assembling. Thermal shows at least 20 vehicles. Cyrus glanced up from his last explosive trap. They're not subtle anymore. Wade nodded. Means they're scared. He watched as the sun dipped below the mountains, casting long shadows across the valley. The team gathered on the porch, staring into the darkening landscape. They weren't young men anymore. But age had given them something better, experience. Patience. The kind of wisdom that came from surviving decades of combat. Knox, North Tower. Best sightlines. They won't expect anyone up there. Cyrus, rig the barn for remote detonation. Make it look like a tempting target. Zane, keep monitoring their comms. The moment they split, we exploit it. Nash, medical station in the basement. But stay mobile. If this goes south, we'll need you moving. Each man nodded. No questions. No hesitation. This wasn't their first impossible mission. It might be their last. One more thing. Wade's voice was quiet, but carried the undeniable weight of command. We're not just defending a farm. We're defending every family in this valley. Every person these bastards would victimize. He met each of their eyes. We do this right. We do it clean. And we do it permanent. As the team moved to their positions, Wade gave his weapons one final check. Atlas sat beside him, ears perked, watching. In the distance, dust clouds rose. The Cartel's forces were assembling. They thought they were about to raid an old man's farm. Instead, they were walking into a trap designed by the deadliest combat veterans alive. The radio crackled. Zane's voice was tight. First wave moving out. ETA, 20 minutes. Copy that, Wade replied, signaling to his team. Let them get comfortable. Let them think they have the advantage. He took one last look at the valley. The Montana sun disappeared behind the mountains, plunging the land into darkness. But darkness had always been their ally. In the shadows, Wade Thorne wasn't a farmer anymore. He was Phantom again. The ghost that hunted other ghosts. And he was about to remind the cartel why that name had once struck fear into the hearts of far more dangerous men than them. Moonlight silvered the Montana landscape as Wade peered through his night vision scope. 20 vehicles. Moving in formation. Whoever trained them knew tactics. Too bad they'd forgotten the first rule of war: never fight on ground your enemy is prepared. Zane's voice crackled through the comms. They're splitting up. 3 teams. Main force on the central road. 2 flanking units circling wide. Knox's voice came through next, cold and professional from his sniper nest. Got eyes on the lead vehicle. Officers in the back seat. Want me to take the shot? Negative, Wade murmured. Let them get comfortable. Spring the trap on my mark. The convoy's headlights sliced through the darkness, moving with confidence. No attempt at stealth. Why would they? They thought they were hunting an old man. Contact in 2 minutes, Cyrus reported. Charges set. These boys are in for a surprise. Wade let out a slow breath, settling his rifle against his shoulder. Game on. As the first cartel vehicles reached the perimeter, Wade watched through his scope. Felix Reyes, cartel boss, stepped out, issuing orders. His men, armed with .50 calories, RPGs, and ex-military precision, moved to surround the farm. They expected an easy target. They had no idea. Let them commit, Wade murmured. At 30 meters, 3 men neared the barn. Now. Cyrus explosives erupted, flipping vehicles into fireballs. Knox dropped 2 soldiers before they realized they were under attack. Chaos exploded. Where's the fire coming from? Felix shouted. Every flanking maneuver was countered. Wade's team had spent years mastering asymmetric warfare. Every hill, every tree, part of a trap. Cyrus explosives herded cartel soldiers right into Nash's line of fire. Wade moved like a ghost, taking down 2 soldiers in seconds. They're too organized, a cartel soldier panicked over the radio. Felix ordered a retreat, but Wade triggered another set of charges, sealing their escape. Knox's rifle cracked, 3 tires exploded. No way out. El Fantasma is going to kill us all, a cartel soldier whispered. El Fantasma, Wade murmured, stepping from the shadows behind Felix. Should have done your homework. Felix spun, too slow. Wade dropped him with a single strike. The remaining cartel men surrendered. Area secure, Knox confirmed. Sarah radioed in. Cartel reinforcements inbound. 20 minutes. Wade tightened his grip. Good. Round 1 was the warning. Now we finish this. As the second wave approached, Wade's real defense activated, not just his team, but the entire valley. Farmers moved equipment, creating natural roadblocks. Lights blinded night vision scopes. Hunters practiced shooting, loudly. The cartel's highly trained operators moved in. They thought they had the upper hand. They were wrong. Contact front, a soldier screamed. They're everywhere. Confusion. Panic. They weren't facing soldiers. They were facing an entire town, moving as one. Cyrus-controlled explosions split their forces. Nash took out an elite squad with surgical precision. Felix's final order? Burn it all. The cartel deployed incendiary weapons, but Wade's team was 5 steps ahead. Knox, Technical with an autocannon inbound. Wade, Cyrus, now. A massive flashbang blinded the pilot. Knox's rifle cracked, spotlight down. Minigun silenced. Felix, wounded, screamed into the radio. Who are these people? Wade, just farmers protecting their land. Felix's final mistake? Trying to run. Knox popped 3 tires. Wade took him down. The cartel was neutralized. By dawn, 37 cartel members sat zip-tied. Felix, barely conscious, muttered, "You could have killed us all." "Wasn't the point," Wade replied. "Dead men don't send messages." As state police arrived, Sheriff Cooper took it all in, burning vehicles, captured cartel soldiers, not a single civilian casualty. Jesus, Wade. What happened here? Wade sipped his coffee. Had some uninvited guests. The FBI arrived, asking questions. Wade gave them exactly what they expected, a simple farmer who got lucky. They left none the wiser. But it wasn't over. Weeks later, cartels tried a new tactic, buying the valley legally. Sarah intercepted real estate developers. Wade's team fed them a bureaucratic nightmare: Native American burial sites, contaminated land, endangered species protection. Cartel intelligence reports? The valley is cursed. 3 scouts went blind just driving through. Thermal scopes pick up ghostly soldiers. The legend of El Valle de Fantasmas, the Valley of Ghosts, was born. The cartels backed off. But Wade knew it wasn't over. So his team expanded. Knox ran a shooting club, a tactical training center. Nash became the town doctor, who just happened to teach emergency trauma care. Cyrus reinforced barns with bulletproof structures, just in case. When the cartels finally sent military contractors, they were met with something no enemy had ever prepared for: a whole community, trained, organized, and ready. No firefight. No direct battle. Just a perfect, invisible defense. By the time the cartel realized what had happened, it was too late. They hadn't lost to soldiers. They'd lost to farmers. Wade looked over the valley, watching normal life resume. "So what now?" Sarah asked. Wade smirked. "Now? We go back to farming." The cartel would never return. Because some territories aren't just defended. They're untouchable.